Hey guys, White Manga here, and today we're going to be learning how to draw muscles with any body type, where I'll be giving you guys 10 art tips from my experience, while using Boku no Hero Academia or My Hero Academia characters, mimicking Horikoshi Kohei's sketching style as best as we can, having fun with it. And don't worry guys, this video is going to be as thorough as I can make it, but if there are parts that you want me to maybe slow down a bit, have no fear, I'll do like a how to draw muscles for beginners that's much slower for those who need it. But I've always wanted to cover muscles in the broad sense, drawing them from front, back, side, all that. Also, if you're worried about me drawing them from certain angles, I'll also do a 20 ways video drawing different poses, different muscle flexes, so many video ideas for the channel. Let's go! Tip 1 would be to use simple shapes to figure out the pose as well as where each muscle goes. You can kind of follow what I'm doing like an observational tutorial, and then you'll see as I'm using these shapes to figure everything out. Once I'm done, next step would be to go over them and make things look less like shapes and more organic. Doing all of this in very loose, free sketches, and then the goal here is again to figure out the pose, figure out where certain muscles go, and in the beginning it's either completely loose or I'm using like straight lines and circles and squares and triangles to just figure everything out. Basically doing all the thinking in this phase. Here drawing Deku, I'm trying to keep it really simple, almost like a very basic pose, kind of looking very tired. You can see it a little bit in his eyes, reminiscent of that moment in the anime, but I digress. So once you've done that with the light sketches, you're now going in with a little more detail, trying to put the rest in. You can see that little curve like an N, letting us know where his rib cage shows from a frontal view, and then all the abs would kind of go under that. But not everybody has this muscular structure, as we will see moving forward. Kind of see the characters or just the human anatomy without skin, and then you see where all the lines go, you see how they kind of connect together, and it kind of gives you a better idea of how these things work. Like all those lines you see that I've put on his chest, curving from his shoulders. That's all stuff that happens underneath. Now sometimes in some muscular structures you're not going to see that. Some characters or some people have chests that come off a little flatter. Maybe there's more fat on there that just flattens it out just enough. And then also depending on your style, you see the curves that I put on his side, like his torso area. It's never really completely straight. To make things feel a little more organic, there are always slight bumps here and there, and those are things to watch out for. With regards to how the muscles connect to one another, again, I'll have a future video that goes into more detail, but for now you can kind of treat this as an observational tutorial and kind of follow me step by step. The legs are another one that people don't pay too much attention to, but you can also see how the muscles connect there. And in some cases, for some characters, especially younger characters that aren't as muscular, you don't have to go into too much detail and have that many lines. Again, I address this in some future tips, so keep watching. Sometimes all you need is just a few lines here and there to indicate muscles, slight curved lines, and that's all you may need, right? Sometimes the most important thing is when you get that overall outline of the muscle where all the bumps go, and then the lines, slight curved lines of how they're connected, you get that and you're fine. Little dashes of shading can also go a long way. Little short hatchings after each line to show shading and depth. And then drawing this Bakugo from behind, you got a similar thing where I kind of do like a diamond around the neck area, and then I draw the lines for the shoulders or where the arms begin. I have it coming down, I have that little V, loose sketching just to let me know how the body's going to start curving back in. And then I have lines to just continue the torso. You can have like a guideline to let you know where the spine goes, and then just having little simple shapes to let me know where his arms are going to be and where the joints are going to be with circles. And then now I can just go in with all these little simple lines, just curves here and there to define it and make things look a little more organic. The back is a little tricky. Sometimes it can be really simplified depending on your style, and sometimes you might want to do something a little more detailed if you want to be realistic. The back of the arms have this little nice end, and there's like a bump before the end at the top, and then it continues into the elbow, and then after the elbow, which is like the joint area, you have a little bump, and then the line just continues down to the wrist. At the back, in some cases, you can just have these kind of lines to just indicate skeletal structure at the back and the spine, and then I shade under the armpit a little bit, again, to show more depth. In some cases, like I said, this is all you need, especially for younger characters such as Bakugo. In other cases, you might want to go in more detail with the muscles and how you see how it curves. It does like a V at the back, and then you see those curves at the top of the neck. Just showing you how these connect. I'm not actually going, these are not how the muscles are going to look. This is just me separating the parts. Tip 2 would be art style consistency. This is pretty straightforward and obvious. Obviously, you need to be very aware of whatever style you're using, whether you're trying to draw it very realistic or cartoony. And even under cartoony, there are different styles in that you can say subgenre. So you just need to figure out which one you're doing and be consistent. And so now you've seen me try to mimic Horikoshi Kohei's sketching style for My Hero Academia and draw how he would draw, abs and chests and muscles and things like that. And then eventually I'll show you guys a little more of how I would approach the same thing, but I'll still be using My Hero Academia characters. And as you can see here with Bakugo's back, there's several ways to do it. And you can have a more detailed version, a more muscular version where you're seeing more anatomically accurate muscles. Or you could do the simple thing, which is what you would see normally in anime or, simplified cartoons, where you have certain lines just suggesting bones and like maybe the spine a little bit, and then that's really it. Not that much detail is put into muscles, back muscles, especially for teenagers. And I'll have other tips that kind of address that when it comes to lines and how much line work you show to suggest muscles. Sometimes the legs can just be drumsticks and just little circles to let me know where the knees and the joints are, and then you just put that together. So think of a drumstick where it's kind of a bump and then it kind of curves together to connect to the ankles. Then subtle lines behind it to just indicate muscles, and that's it. Just call them muscle lines. Sometimes I shade underneath the elbow, looking from behind. It just gives it a little depth sometimes. Sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. Tip 3 would be to study several muscle structures. It's not all the same, guys. So it's not just art style, but in real life, it's not all the same. You see people who work out daily that are ripped to shreds, but then, their abs look different. Some are kind of stacked. Some are, weirdly positioned. It's different. And so it'll be good to kind of see the different ways, to see different muscle structures on different people, how they look on bodybuilders, how they looked on, maybe people in the 80s, how they looked on, people who do certain workouts. The list goes on. So I'd recommend studying several of them and maybe picking one and mastering that one and having that one be the foundation that you build upon to then learn others if necessary. Quick tip here, if you have a character with a thin neck, they're not going to look as muscular, and if you still make them muscular, maybe it's like a skinny type of fit. But if you really want them to really sell that they are super fit and strong, you want thicker necks where the lines kind of start at the edge of the jaw on each side underneath the ear. And then I had to do my little diamond-shaped V for the shoulder blades and where the arms kind of pop out of with these curves. You can kind of follow me step by step. And this is how I actually draw the body from a frontal view, a muscular structure, the way I do it on average, right? Sometimes I switch it up, but this is my go-to usually. And then these are all the lines curving from each side of the arm. I do 2, and then the last one to just finish up the chest. Then I have this oval shape for the biceps, triceps, all that, all the steps. And you can just start with simple shapes and then connect. To do this, you do need at least a decent idea of a body proportion. If not, you might be getting the muscles right and where they go, at least in this style, but like they might look off. So it's always good to have a decent idea of like the body proportions of the figure. So here with the arms, it's going to be a little different since his arm is doing something different. So now the biceps are almost moving away. So in some cases, you need to know how the muscles change position when the character changes position as well, because the muscles aren't always in the same position regardless of the pose. So now I put in the curves for the rib cage, and then I have those lines right there. Putting the obliques and these kind of muscles on the side can get really confusing, so this is how I do it. I do like little V's there, and you can have it be symmetrical. You see I have a line that goes across vertically to separate, and I do 3 of them, and then I use those lines that come out of them to form the abs. They don't just completely form it, they kind of do a little weird curve and then continue, almost like they bend and then go back in the current direction, and they form a 6-pack. I know I used to struggle with this a couple years ago, so hopefully this makes it easier for you guys. Tip 4, this is pretty obvious. The more ripped and muscly the character is, the more muscle lines you're gonna see, and vice versa. The more you see those lines connecting muscle A to muscle B. You know, when they're ripped, there's less fat and more muscle, and you see all these very defined bumps all over the body. And then you have those lines. Then you draw those muscle lines to help indicate where all those bumps happen, where all those muscles are placed, where the muscle structure of the body is. So depending on the muscle structure of the character, you have the lines act accordingly. Here in my style, I do like to draw, a nipple is like a tiny circle on each end. Maybe not a complete circle, but at least something there to show he's not an alien. With the abs, you can make them a little more defined and figure out what you're doing there. I can have like those subtle circles to show what's going on. Over here, you can see kind of giving an idea of how the muscles kind of behave underneath the skin. And again, knowing all those things will kind of let you know where certain bumps are going to be, because that tricep is not going to be completely smooth, right? It's going to have subtle bumps that we just can't see from this angle, especially if you want to be super anatomically correct. If not, again, depends on your style. Just subtle lines here and there. You see how it's connected. It's going to be disconnected if the character is like super ripped, where you can see each line. Every section of his muscular structure is so defined that the lines are connected. They're never completely connected, because then it's almost like putting ink to divide his actual muscle. So it's never all the lines are never completely connected. The more they are, the more defined the character looks. Here I'm showing you guys like little lines here and there to show you how the abs are separated from everything else. And then those final abs at the bottom that kind of lead to his junk. Then right in the waist area, you see like a little curve. There's certain curves that happen there. It's not just straight. It's almost like his hips pop out just a little bit. Nothing too feminine, but just a little bit. So those lines kind of form at least the area his junk's gonna be in. And then in that, it's gonna form certain V's in the thigh area, in that thigh gap area. And that line connects straight to the knees. And this is kind of how it's put together. So I just did that really quick. Let's do it again. But this time we go with the overall shape, straight lines, and like circle. Let me know where the knee is and the joint. And you see having that drumstick happen again as it's curving towards the knee, and then for his calves and down. And then we're having the same lines again. So you can remember these lines. You can follow me from an observational standpoint to just know how these things go. Again, all these lines are not going to connect like this. This is just me letting you guys see how it separates in my style. Because then once it's time to actually put this together, you will just have subtle lines to just suggest where these muscles have this separations, how the sections of this muscular structure are separated. As you can see here, now I'm erasing parts of it and then going in with some shading and some thicker lines to help sell it. And that's how I draw a muscular dude in my style. At least an average build muscular dude. I could have made his upper body much bigger, but this is a character, my hero character, so I was trying to stay faithful to that. It's been a sausage fest so far, so let's switch things up. I'm drawing, see the line to let me know where her spine is, and again, it's a female character, so I'm giving room for certain curves in certain places, and she's striking a subtle pose where people don't just stand straight. So that line for the spine is not going to be straight, especially because we're seeing her from a 3/4 view from behind. And so that spine just lets me know. And again, we've done the back, so now I'm just kind of mapping things, figuring out where her ribs are going to be, where they start, where they end, and then just acting accordingly. You have certain curves to let you know where the bum is going to be, how the hips actually are drawn. Same way people have different muscle structure, sometimes different skeletal structure, so not every lady's hips are the same. People are different, man. Having her strike a little bit of a pose, doing the little end behind the arm again. And this is just kind of how I construct things. And this is because, and so it comes with practice. It comes with knowing where the muscles go. It comes with doing it a lot, over and over and over until you get it, until you're used to it. And using reference if you have to, until you no longer need to. Tip 5 is not that necessary, but knowing the muscles goes a long way. Say you're a gym nut, or you're some kind of health person, and you really know where muscles go You know what they're called: biceps, triceps, abs, obliques, the list goes on. And you know how they're connected to one another and all of that. Those help a great deal. In fact, they probably will help you in other drawings with body poses and just knowing body proportions and anatomy. It'll kind of help you in other areas as well. But do you need to know it? No, but it definitely helps. Knowing all the muscles in the chest, whole front, the back, the arm, front and back, the legs, those help a lot. Even knowing the skeletal structure and knowing where joints are placed, that helps a great deal. You'd be going into the drawing with knowledge that builds your confidence into what you're drawing. In fact, I'm pretty sure I've mentioned it here and there already anyways. And just knowing what happens when the character changes a position, how the muscles interact and change to fit that and adapt, the way it stretches, where it goes, where they are normally, all of that go a long way. That comes from you studying and doing research and looking at the body from all angles, different types of people, different body types, the list goes on. Once you know how the muscles are separated, then you know where to put those subtle muscle lines to indicate muscles. Tip 6 is once you've mastered a structure, you can actually use that same one for all. Basically, it's the same body, so whatever structure you're using, if it's your style, maybe in your style, every character has the same muscular structure, which is fine. You can apply that to all the characters: tall, short, male, female, old, not old. However, because the body shapes and body types will be different, you'll need to make some adjustments. For instance, with a female, the chest area is definitely different for obvious reasons. Once you figured out the whole shape of the character, maybe from a silhouette standpoint, and then you're putting in all these lines, almost like mapping all the line work for the muscular structure that you've already learned in your head, and you're just mapping it onto this body, you can actually do it, say, without making any adjustments to the chest area, and then doing that last. Or either you're doing it first, kind of seeing through them and just acting like it's a male chest or whatever, and you put in the breasts after, popping out from that chest area, doing whatever you want to do, because now drawing breasts is different shapes, different sizes, different ways to do that. Completely different video. Maybe in the future I'll have a video that less so about the muscles and just more so about the female anatomy, maybe drawing boobs, hips, waist, and how tricky that can be, and maybe doing it within certain poses, different ways. So you guys should make sure you subscribe for that in the future. So here I have it pretty much mapped out. We don't see it as much because the character here is not that muscular, so some of the lines are not going to show as much. In fact, we're just going to see more of a vertical line suggesting where those bumps happen for the abs, and then that's it. And sometimes that's all you need. Not every character needs to be completely ripped. Same deal with this dude. With his body, I can map out where those muscles are going to show, but they're not going to be defined enough for you to see because of his physical nature and how he isn't ripped. So I know where all these things go because they are there. They are there underneath the skin, but they're not going to show as much because, well, he's not that ripped. So we might see some lines to suggest the chest muscle, and really that might be it. Maybe a line to suggest a belly button, and that's it. Or maybe a line that goes vertically, and this is just a simple way to do it, especially for young characters. What's he looking at? What's he looking at? Same deal for skinny characters. You do the same thing, and then you map accordingly. Leading into the next tip. Tip 7, more muscles, more bumps. So like the bigger the muscles, the more bump you got going on. So all those places where you know the muscles are going to be, right? They kind of swell towards their center, and they just swell, and they swell even further if the character is flexing in any way, and vice versa. There are times where maybe if the character is skinny, so not muscly at all, and they're like really bony, you'll still have some bumps towards the joints, but then the bumps will happen before and after a joint maybe, or somewhat, if the character is very muscular instead. Probably should have drawn muscular. I don't know. Is he a popular character at all? Let me know in the comments. What do y'all think of him? I thought about drawing him, and then, just didn't work out. But again, back to the muscles. Looking back at the previous tips, it'll be easier to maneuver through all of this if, again, You're a whiz with all the muscle stuff. You know the body, you know the muscles, you know where they go and how they're connected to one another. So therefore, you know how they stretch and expand and tear. Knowing all that kind of stuff helps as well. Again, I'm doing a little bit of a curve in. It's almost like his stomach is caving in, like he's hungry, but you see that curve at the top underneath his chest to suggest where the rib cage is going to be, and then his hips or his waist kind of pops out a little more in a very strange way, almost like he's hungry. And then, putting the obvious wound. So those aren't muscles for those who aren't familiar with My Hero Academia. I'm curious, how many of you actually have never seen My Hero Academia? Anyways, with skinnier characters, we're going to see more of a bony bump in some cases. But a muscle bump for the All Might we're drawing right here. I always usually start with the head. Again, a very thick neck just makes everything seem muscular. And again, that V, in fact, we're even starting a little higher because the muscles are there's so much of a bump. It's almost like he doesn't have a neck. And you'll see similar things with characters like the Hulk from the Avengers. Again, we have those muscles. Here he's flexing, so the positions of all those separate parts of the muscles are moving a little bit in a certain way. And here you can see the chest almost caving in, facing itself to a degree. And then just watch and pay attention to how all the muscles kind of move versus the Mirio drawing compared to this All Might drawing. Tip 8, when a character is like really swole, that exaggeration can sometimes be good for character design, especially passing maybe a silhouette test because they'll look more interesting in a silhouette form. And sometimes exaggeration with design helps sell maybe a key point about the character in some way. Maybe they're really, really strong, or at least that's what you want people to think. Exaggeration in general, in certain areas, depending on your style, goes a long way. But another thing with the swollenness and the flexing is there's like a huge bump in the shoulder area to the point where maybe their neck is really thick, but so close to it that it almost looks like they don't have a neck. Again, that helps sell that the character is like really built. And so subtle exaggerations like that go a long way. You should look at the Hulk, Muscular, All Might, even exaggeration in body parts like the hand maybe being the size of the head. Look at Street Fighter characters and how they're built. In some cases, it doesn't even look realistic at all, but it comes off interesting. Again, it all comes down to stylistic choices. And then you look at all these other examples. Look at this Broly, I believe. See how buff, like unrealistic. And then now back to the All Might. Again, I have some subtle sketch lines also letting me know where all the muscles go, even though they're not going to actually show. Sometimes it just lets me know what's going on much better. Shading underneath the armpit, just so if you wanted to have that comic book style shading, or at least the My Hero style shading for All Might, you can do that as well. You know where that goes if any of you are curious to that. But overall, shading kind of helps solidify and show volume when you're drawing characters like this. Overall, kind of comes with practice, but if you know what's going on and keep track of the tips I've given you so far, I believe it'll make things a little easier. Tip 9 would be to study veins. Look at all them tiny little snakes and how they crawl underneath your skin in the body. Or muscular characters or muscular people. There's certain areas that they're more likely to be than others. You're more likely to see veins in maybe older characters or maybe sicker characters. But again, it's something to study, especially if the character's flexing in such an intense way. So intense veins can help sell, a flex, or maybe a character charging before an attack, even anger, veins in the forehead. In some cases, they can help bring muscles to life. Here, more shading, easier once you know where a light source is coming from. I have more defined, darker lines for the abs. And then that is All Might. You can add in more lines if you know how all the muscles look underneath the skin. Just more lines to suggest all those muscles underneath, because it helps sell the flex, not just with the veins. Sometimes veins go there, sometimes veins go in the biceps, just like one line. Highly recommend you guys study that. Not everybody's gonna show veins, especially younger characters, but some would. In fact, some would without even flexing, especially if they're older, aside from a few special cases. And then the last tip would kind of be to explore and experiment with, again, several muscular structures, but maybe characters that aren't humanoid, maybe animals. Animals have muscles, you can learn that, and that'll just kind of get you in that mindset. Maybe when you're creating your own characters that might not be human, you'd have really cool ideas of creating muscular structures of your own that don't really exist. You're making it up. You have elements of that exaggeration in there. You'll be exploring with styles. So maybe break the rules where you can, and this video with all the tips prior are more of like setting that foundation so you're knowing the rules before you can actually break them. Just look at all these weird designs. Look at that. You know, his head is basically lost in the huge bump. Almost unrealistic. This man's has abs on his back. You know what I mean? So sometimes you can take some stylistic liberties if you want with experimentation. See all these characters and doing them in some way, some shape or form. So the Street Fighter characters have feet the size of their heads, or in fact bigger. Hell, bigger in some cases. Please leave in the comments if you have any questions, if there are any tutorials that you guys would like to see me tackle, or any kinds of videos you would like to see me do on this channel that maybe I've never done before. There's a lot of videos coming. I have a lot of footage, a lot of recorded stuff on the way, so please stick around and subscribe. Out of curiosity, I'll also want to know who your favorite MHA character is. Please don't forget to like this video. United States is smash that subscribe button and hit the bell so you stay notified each time I upload absolutely anything. Check out my own comic, Apple Black, available for reading. Chapter 1 is free. Published and serialized in Saturday AM. You can check out our app. We're kind of like Shonen Jump, but here in the West. There's a nice starter guide inside the app that you guys can go check out that explains who we are and how to use our app thoroughly. It's free to download. I appreciate it if you guys check that out. You can also get 2 free months of SKILLSHARE. You're welcome. Check out my other videos. This is WHYTMANGA, and I'm out. Lost all, bro.